let's listen to this song.
When I'm at my worst, when I'm at my best, you couldn't love me more, you'll never love me less. You met me in places that I could have never imagined. You washed all my failures away as though they never happened. You love me still, you always will. Nothing can change it, nothing can change it. You love me still, you always will. Nothing can change it, nothing can change it. Even when I want it, I'm still within your reach. There's never been a moment you gave up on me. You met me in places that I could have never imagined. You washed all my failures away as though they never happened. You love me still, you always will. Nothing can change it, nothing can change it. You love me still, you always will. Nothing can change it, nothing can change it. You love me still. Not for what I've done, but just because. Not for what I've done, but just because. Oh yeah. Not for what I've done, but just because. Oh, not for what I've done, but just because.
All right, I'm going to turn that off for now. It'll probably tell us goodbye in a minute. It's okay. Y'all don't go anywhere just because it says goodbye. All right. So I love that song because it just reminds us that no matter what we do, God still loves us. Our confidence is in Christ. And so we can have a stronger sense of self because God is with us and loves us no matter what we do. He's always ready to take us back if we stray. So this session is unlocking the power of self-efficacy, nurturing confidence. So here's the family. They look pretty good. They look pretty good. So I have a son. This son right here is teaching high school biology at Shallow Water. He has lots of fun stories. I always thought he should be a teacher. He never thought he should be. And a couple years ago, my niece kind of forced him into teaching because he didn't have a job. And he's doing so good, and he loves it. It's so fun to hear his stories. Next to him is Emily. She's our baby. She just got her degree in December, and she is working in ministry. So that's really exciting to see someone who is very much an introvert to stand up and speak and pray over people and minister to people. So it's pretty cool. And of course, my husband. We've been married 30 years, 31 to, I've lost track. Is he still here? Oh, sorry. I've lost track. We got married in 91, so 23 years. Okay, 33 years. Anyway. Okay, and then Abby is my daughter-in-law, and I could not ask for a better daughter-in-law. She is the sweetest, most kind-hearted. She's Abby Langford, if you know the Langfords. He's the minister over at Quaker Street Church of Christ here. Phenomenal person. And then Jackson, next to her, is my oldest, and he is an RN in the emergency room. And what's fun about him is he had a lot of anxiety growing up, vomited diarrhea before the whole year of 6th grade. He would hold on to me. When I got out of the car, he would lock me out of the car. Severe, severe anxiety. To watch him evolve into an RN in an emergency room situation is so incredible. The Lord working. Really an example of self-efficacy, for sure. So I'm an occupational therapist. Who knows about occupational therapy? All right, good. Can anybody tell me what occupational therapy does? Nice. That right there is a smart person. That is also my sister-in-law. Yes. So that's what people might not know, is that we help people with anything that occupies your time. That's what occupational therapy is. It's not helping people get a job, which is a lot of what people think. It's not just helping people with fine motor skills, which is something else people think. It's not just helping children in school systems behave well. That's not just OT. OT can do anything from birth until death, because whatever we do all day long is what occupies our time. And we want you to have good health and well-being, and so we can work with you on whatever's meaningful to you. All right, so here's our objectives. I'm a professor, so any good lecture has objectives that go with it, so I hope we reach these objectives by the end. All right, let's talk a little tiny bit about the history. So Patrick Bandura came up with the social cognitive theory. Unfortunately, you guys, I teach theory. I love theory, so for sure 3 of these sessions are going to directly connect to some theory. Sorry. But I think that when people experiment and learn things and develop some kind of system, and then they implement that system, and then research is done on that system, that theory can be backed up and backed up. And so this is one of those theories that's had a lot of research behind it. Incidentally, just so you know, God is science. Science is God. So you're going to learn science today and the rest of the 2 days that I'm speaking. So every time I'm talking about science, don't think that I'm not talking about God, because you cannot separate it. So this is a theory that was developed. And so it says that what they discovered, which is easy for us to understand, is that people can self-organize. We are our own kind of personal agency. I'm in charge of my life. I have the ability to self-reflect. I have the ability to regulate myself so that I don't get out of control with my emotions. I have that ability. It's also good to know that our environment shapes us. So the people we're around and the physical environment we're around is also shaping us. So that's kind of what this theory was about. And then as we have a certain behavior, and then we have the ability to reflect on it. And then as we reflect on it, we make some interpretations. Oh, you know what? I kind of blew up at that person. Ugh, that was not good. And so we have that ability to change our behavior if we choose to. And that's kind of what the theory kind of said, essentially. So, confidence. A feeling of self-assurance arising from one's appreciation of one's abilities. That's confidence. Self-concept is how someone thinks about or evaluates themselves. So do I see myself as a good person? That's self-concept. Do I see myself as a good wife, as a good professor? Whatever it is, that's self-concept. Oh, let me pause. You're taking pictures, and you don't need to if you don't want to. There is a QR code on the back of this, and I have a website I've created, and it has all the handouts on it. So you can QR code with your phone, and it should take you to all of my resources. It'll take you to all the PowerPoints, all the books I'm recommending, websites that are resources, a song list. If you have Spotify, it should take you there. So if you want to, and you don't have to take pictures, you can just use that. But you're welcome to take pictures also. I just forgot to kind of mention that. So self-esteem is the confidence of someone's worth. How do I esteem myself, my self-respect? But then there's self-efficacy. How many people have heard of self-efficacy before? Very, very few people have heard of self-efficacy, and it's the most important thing that we need to be doing in our lives is building our self-efficacy. And self-efficacy is just you believe in your ability to do whatever's at hand. Whatever task is set before you, you have the ability to do it. You believe that. So today, I have high self-efficacy about presenting to you guys. I believe I can do it. Now, my husband rides a one-wheel sometimes. It's one of those crazy hoverboard things. I have zero self-efficacy. I am not getting on that thing. I do not believe I can do it. So self-efficacy is whatever's right in front of you. And so the reason I like to talk about this in a lot of Christianity is that sometimes I feel like we maybe make being a Christian harder to do and believe that we can do. We possibly make the Bible harder to understand than we need to. And so we feel like it's a daunting thing, that we have this big, thick book and we don't understand it. And that might get portrayed even to our children, that it's really hard to be a Christian, or it's really hard to walk with Christ. And so we're not helping support their self-efficacy in their relationship with Christ. And so that's what I want us to kind of frame this in, is that we want to increase people's ability to believe they can walk with Christ, for sure. So if I was to ask you people that are introverts, if I said, I need all the introverts to come up here and stand on stage. And then I want you to walk around and go for a little bit. And it's volunteer. How many of my introverts would do that? Nobody would. But what if I reframed it and I said, okay, you guys, I'm going to donate $1,000 to a person in here that's having medical issues that you love. I'm going to donate $1,000 if you'll come up and do that. Probably everybody would. All we did was change the way we think. It's incredible. We just have to change the way we think and what we believe that we can do. And self-efficacy is that, kind of changing the way we think. So kind of looking at some scriptures about confidence, we could go on and on about scriptures that support confidence in the Bible. So I didn't do a lot. I just did these 4. But just kind of thinking about, I would challenge you to look through the Bible at all the times that the Bible is teaching you that you can have a relationship with Jesus. You can do what you're asked to do. God loves you and wants a relationship with you. I would say the whole entire Bible is saying that. So there's lots of things that we could say about confidence, really self-efficacy, because God is teaching you throughout the Bible that you can do it through his people. So self-efficacy influences the way we feel, believe, think, motivated, making decisions. So the way we feel. We have to feel good about ourselves. We have to be able to regulate our emotions. We have to, feel like we can do good. We have to believe we can do good. We have to control our thoughts. That's really the key, because if you can't control your thoughts, you're going to have a hard time then doing the activity. So if I'm up here the whole time saying, that voice in the background saying, you can't, you can't, you can't, you can't, you can't, I'm going to have a hard time doing. So we have to be able to think we can. Then motivation has to be intrinsically motivated, which means that motivation has to come from within yourself. It really can't come from the people around you. There's a part of that, which we're going to get into, but really it has to be something that you believe inside you, that you are motivated to do this. It has to come within. And of course, all of our thoughts affect our behavior. Everything we do behavior-wise comes from the way we think. And so we want to develop that strong self-efficacy because it's required to remain on a task when we're put under pressure. So if you're put under pressure, which is all of life, we have to be able to remain solid and stand firm in our beliefs. And that's also self-efficacy. So again, it's task-specific. So I'm not going to have good self-efficacy in everything just because I have it in one thing. Although, the more efficacy you build, the easier it is going to be to build for other things. So even though it's really that some one thing right in front of you, it's also fluid and can be generalized to other things as you practice it. All right, the benefits. So this is going to be science. Research has looked at these things. God created us in a certain way and created our minds in a certain way. So we're going to look at some evidence. Self-efficacy creates success. As we interpret our actions and choices and beliefs, we're going to make decisions, and we're going to be successful if we have good self-reflection and we move forward in a positive way. One's belief in one's ability is a better predictor than my actual capacities. So I can be a really smart person, but if I don't believe I'm smart and that I can influence the world, I won't do anything with that. So I have to believe in myself. It does require harmony with your abilities and your beliefs. So if I want to be an NBA star, great. I do not have the ability to do that. So that harmony would not be there. So there are things that we don't have the ability to do. So I'm not talking about those things. I'm talking about those things that we do have the capacity to do. Self-efficacy promotes one's outcome. So if I expect to fail, if I expect to do a poor job, if I expect I can't walk a Christian life, if I expect I can't overcome some addiction, whatever it is, if I expect I can't, then that's probably what's going to happen. You're not going to be able to. Whether you think you can or that you can't, you are usually right. Henry Ford. So more research. So self-efficacy, people that have high self-efficacy have healthy behaviors. All of these are study related. So people have a healthier diet, they exercise, they avoid smoking, abstaining from illegal substances, they have safe sexual activities, they're bullied less, and they're more likely to not bully if they have high self-efficacy. In one study, participants lost 50% more weight just because they said they could. I believe I can. Better performance in sports. One study found that basketball players hit more foul shots, those free throws, just because they believe they could. It's just about, we just got to change the way we think, which is pretty incredible. Academic achievement. Self-efficacy affects every possible area of academic achievement. So if you believe you can do, you're going to do better. Better overall performance, obtaining goals, setting higher goals. The higher goals we set for ourselves, the better we are. We want them to be achievable, because if we don't achieve them, that can produce less efficacy. But we want to set some high, challenging goals for ourselves and then reach them. Work hard. Are we going to fail? Yeah, sometimes. But we want to keep trying so that we can be as successful as we can. Higher grades, more challenging classes. If the teacher or professor has higher efficacy, if I believe I can teach you, they're going to learn better. That makes sense for sure. Groups, so students working together. If that group of students believes they can do as a group, they're going to do better. They work harder, they persist longer, face of adversity, etc. Groups, sports groups, if a team believes they're unified and they can do it, they're going to do better. Just changing the way we believe. And there's one. My PowerPoint's a little different than this is, so I'm sorry about that. I'll upload the correct version. I thought I did that, so it's a little bit off. All right, so if we're going to increase self-efficacy, we need to do these 4 things. So everybody wants to know how. We know we need it. You know you need to believe in yourself. How are you going to increase your self-efficacy? How are you going to increase your children's, your grandchildren's, your nieces, your neighbors, yourself, whoever's around you that you want to have the benefits of self-efficacy? Then this is how you do it. And we're going to go through these 4. The first one is past, assist the future. So what we want to do is we want people to reflect. Again, reflection's important. If someone can't reflect, it's going to be hard for them. So we have to teach and help people understand how to reflect, journaling, what happened, what could I do differently, kind of reflecting. So we want to reflect on the past. Because the reason we want to do that is because if I'm nervous about speaking, then I can say, you know what, I spoke last week and these things went really well. This didn't go as well, I'm going to change that. But for the most part, I feel good about it. And so it can support the next endeavor that we have to help build. Again, reflections are important. Being able to evaluate. We have to be able to regulate ourselves. Again, we're going to talk about how to regulate. So when you start to have a moment of anxiety or depression or anger, and your blood pressure raises and your heart's racing, in the next session, we're going to talk about what to do about that and how to calm yourself and what science says about stress. But it's important with self-regulation that we can regulate ourselves. We can't really correct ourselves, right, if we don't reflect in some way. Failures are actually really important for building self-efficacy. We have to fail a little. That's where we learn. I think we probably know that by now if you've lived very long, to know that when you make a mistake or say something wrong or do an activity and it doesn't turn out the way you want it to, you go back and evaluate that. And those times where you failed, really you learn more than times that are really easy for you. That's the reason setting really high goals that are challenging are important. So just looking through this list, all of these are people who failed the first time or didn't really get noticed, but now are very successful. When failure is normative, resilience is second nature. And I actually think that's something that younger people today are missing, is how to be resilient. They're not getting up after they fail. It's really important that people have resilience. And if we allow our children or ourselves to fail some and then we get back up and then we're successful and that becomes a normal behavior for us, then it's going to be fine. We're going to be able to just go on, have resilience, and regulate ourselves easier. I like to think, biblically, I think about the prodigal son, how really that father allowed him to fail. He said, I'm going to give you control and give you choice, which is important for self-efficacy. And he went and failed and came back, and the dad accepted him back, right? But I bet you that prodigal son reflected many days about his behavior and changed his behavior moving forward, if I was to guess. So there's different ways we can help. We can do instrumental or we can do executive helping. Instrumental is we're being just an instrument. So if we're going to think about our children, we're not going to be helicopter parents. So we're not going to, every problem they have, we're not going to come in and solve it for them. We're not going to go to the school every time there's a problem. We're not going to email or call the teacher every time there's a problem. Is there times to intervene? Yes, there are. But most of the time, the children really need to solve those problems on their own with your help. So at home, you're going to be giving them strategies. You're going to be problem solving with them. You're going to be role playing, super important to role play. Have them say, what are you going to say to your teacher? I'll be your teacher, and let them role play what they're going to do. So you're supporting them and giving them instrumental help, but you're not doing all the work for them, which is executive help. So that instrumental help is what increases self-efficacy, because what we're doing when we let them do that themselves, internally, they're becoming intrinsically motivated to do it next time. They believe in their abilities to do it. They know that you're there for support, but they know they can do it next time. So we're building that efficacy in them. Executive help really undermines that intrinsic motivation, because they're just going to come to you every time. They don't have to do. They don't have to improve themselves. They're just going to let you do the work. All right, the next one is peers show success. So it's important that we have good peers around them. Iron sharpens iron. The Lord knows some things. So we look and we see and we tell our children or ourselves, and we say, what are the peers doing? So for me, probably 10 years ago, more than that now, 15, I thought, I want to be a professor. I didn't have the greatest grades. I don't have any experience speaking. But you know what? Those people that were in my graduating class are teaching. Why can't I do that? And so I just started telling myself, I'm going to be a professor. And I started letting the Lord shape me, learning how to speak, letting me actually fail a lot and learn from those failures. It was a fun journey to go down, but I really started with my peers are doing it. There's no reason I can't do it. So with our kids, we definitely want our kids to be around people that are highly efficacious, that are making good decisions. We want to also point out to our children or grandchildren that there's some things they're doing wrong. These people who are not following God's word, let's look at their life. Let's look at their decisions. Let's look at what's happening after the fact when they make the wrong decision. So kind of pointing out positive things and negative things. But we want to have definitely strong peer success that our children see. Again, this idea of social connection. Social connections cushion adverse effects. We know that. So if you want to have less chronic stress and you want to have a better body that responds to you and you're able to regulate yourself and you're able to have a better heart rhythm, mind-body connection, which we're going to talk about throughout these 4. If you want to have a better healthy body, you need to be around people that are good, that are going to be giving you a good example. They decrease stress because they fill us up, they energize us. Also remembering that self-efficacy is not a competition. So we don't want our children to compete against their peers. You're not competing against another peer. You're using that peer as like a beacon, like, okay, I'm going to do what they're doing because if they can do it, I can do it. They're doing it successfully. If we look at it biblically, think about the apostles. The apostles were constantly reminding people to follow Christ. They were looking at the Old Testament prophets. They were looking at the Israelites. What's going well with your peers? It's in the past, but it's still peers in the same way that you're trying to move towards Christianity. You can do it because they did it. God was always there. God always delivered them. They're going to deliver you. That's a way to develop self-efficacy using peers. We do that. We look in the Bible and we see those peers and we gain insight and encouragement from those peers. We also see people at church that have gone through really hard trials and they come out so successful. I say they have an extra survival gene because it's incredible to me how well people do. Some people do. They probably have high self-efficacy, but we look at them and then we gain some encouragement from that. Praise, reinforce, reflect. So we do need to get encouragement from people. It's important to have some encouragement from those that we love and that we trust. Encouragement should produce a positive inward reflection. It's all about reflection. So what's so nice about my peers is I have Vonda in the audience and Melissa in the audience. They both texted me this morning and told me they were praying for me and they love me and I could do it. That's encouragement that produces better self-efficacy because I love both of them. I trust them. I respect them. And so when they encourage me, it builds me up. It's not empty praise. We want to not do just empty praise. I know it's not empty praise. My husband said encouraging words. My son Jackson texted me. My daughter sent me a little video of encouragement. So all these people in my life are giving me encouragement, and that builds self-efficacy. It allows me to be ready to respond today. So thinking about, we need to give them challenges and they have to master some skills. So there is this skill element that helps people. We want a just right challenge. So we've kind of talked about that already. We want it hard enough to energize, but not paralyze somebody. So give a good challenge, help your children or yourselves find a good challenge, set good goals for yourself. What we obtain too cheaply, we esteem too lightly. I actually had taken those 2 slides out, so y'all get extra. For sake of time, we're not spending time on them. What I want to talk about is effort versus excellent. So what we want to do is we want to encourage people around us, our children, our grandchildren, nieces, whoever it is. If we're going to give encouraging words, we want to do that in a way that rewards effort, not excellence. So you wouldn't want to give your children $20 for all A's if you're going to build self-efficacy, because it's not about being perfect. It's about you're willing to work hard, take on a challenge, and be successful and resilient. So you're going to reward effort. So instead of giving them money for their high grades, you may encourage them to do better and make some better grades. That's okay to do. But you do more of, did you get all your assignments turned in? Is everything completed at the end of the semester? You know, that kind of stuff. Are you working? You can tell if your kids are working hard for school, for example. You want to let the person know that their competence and their ability is changeable and it's controllable. So I don't want to tell somebody, you know, you're so smart, because intelligence could be innate. I could be born with the ability to be intelligent. And so that doesn't take as much work as if you tell somebody in a different way. So try not to, you know, pick out something that they might say, oh, I have that natural ability, I don't have to work, because it doesn't produce that good self-efficacy in people. We don't want to do a knee-jerk praise, for sure. Efficacy only strengthens when the praise is wholehearted and deserves really a real accomplishment. When we praise people with minimal effort, you know, we just say good job about everything, then we're giving them the wrong message that minimal effort deserves praise. We want you to work hard. If you're going to have better efficacy, we need to set some challenges that are hard for you, and then we praise you about them. Abilities are acquired skills, not natural. So we kind of talked about that. But me as a professor, I really didn't have the natural skills. I've had to work and learn some skills and acquire some skills. So let's do a little example. Let's pretend like you have a, I don't know, 8-year-old. 8-year-old comes up to you and they bring you something that they colored and they drew this. They're so excited about it. And they bring it to you. What do? What's the first thing you say? Good job, this is awesome. Let's reconsider. I'm going to teach y'all a different way. Because what happens if you do that? You're actually not reinforcing intrinsic motivation. You're reinforcing external motivation, which means the parent has to be present or a teacher has to be present for them to feel good about themselves. So instead, it takes practice. But instead, they bring you their picture, they're so excited about it, and you say, whoa, tell me about this picture. And they start telling you, what made you want to draw a unicorn? They tell you about it. Why'd you pick pink? So you're asking them what kind of questions? Reflection questions. You need them to reflect to become internally motivated. It's really, really important. Because you're not going to be there all the time with them. As they go through life, most of the time we're going to be alone, and we need to believe in our abilities. And so we want to foster that in our children. Another example, I went to my niece's play at school, and it was Willy Wonka. And she's a fourth grader. I think she's a fourth grader at this time. And so she's up on stage, and she's an Oompa Loompa. And so she's up there, and there's not really many props because it wasn't a fancy play. And she's up there singing the song, but she's just kind of doing stuff like twisting her hands and touching imaginary buttons there. And after it was over, I just decided I'm going to see what the family says. My sister-in-law left, so good thing. Just kidding. So I just sat and listened, and my son, Andrew, who's the teacher, I said, I want you to watch. I'm going to teach you how to help someone with self-efficacy. And so I watched, and she came up to the family, oh, good job. That was so awesome. You are so cute. You are beautiful. All sweet things, but that's external motivation. So then when she came to me, I said, you look just like an Oompa Loompa. What were you doing up there? And so she just starts explaining everything she was doing. And so I was having her reflect on what she did so that I could build that internal motivation. So if you're not used to praising that way, it takes a lot of practice. You'll catch yourself going, oh. Now, that doesn't mean you can't say good job sometimes, right? You can definitely say good job sometimes. But for the most part, have your children or people around you or people that you notice. I have people in my life that don't have self-efficacy, and they're grown adults. And so I practice the same skills with them. I say good job afterwards, but I do some of those reflective questionings. And some people will say, my son, Andrew, will say, you're doing that stuff to me. Yes, I am. All right. Praise them appropriately. So we pretty well talked through all of this. We want it to be intrinsic motivation. We don't want to give unintended messages either. So we don't want to say something like, if you're really trying to get your kids to floss or yourself to floss or whatever, and you don't want to say something like, oh, don't feel bad about it, I don't floss either. Because what is that telling them? Hey, I really need to floss if you're not going to do it. So be careful of the messages that you're also sending. All right. This slide is the whole next session. It's how we internally regulate. It's how do we calm down our nervous system. But to have good self-efficacy, we have to be able to do that. So just quickly, some science behind efficacy. So science says that good self-regulators are obviously more successful. If I can't regulate myself, I'm not going to be able to speak. Self-regulation, if you are a person who has a hard time regulating, which means you're laying in bed and you're mulling over everything and you can't sleep and you're just worrying and mulling and thinking about what you said or what you're going to do, and you just cannot turn that brain off, and I think that's probably many of us in this room, including myself. It's exhausting. So learning how to stop that and regulate ourselves is beneficial, because regulating takes a lot of energy. So it can be exhausting. But people who have high efficacy don't have to spend time doing that because they believe in their abilities. And so it takes less energy. That nervous system can calm down when we face a challenge. And this is really what I'm going to talk about in the next session that's called secondary energy. So we're going to talk about that later. What else? Personal agency, again, is we want to have control over our own lives. So we want to make sure that we're giving ourselves control of things, and also our children or those that we're trying to help in kind of raising them in a way, depending on who that is. We want to be able to give control so that when they face challenges, they can persevere. Lots of scriptures about perseverance in the Bible. We want to give them choices, and so I can give an example of my parents. In high school, I was on the basketball team, and I was the captain of the team. I can brag about it now because I don't play now. Nobody's going to see me play basketball now. But it was very stressful for me. I had high anxiety. I still carry anxiety around. And so I don't know where my son gets it, I would vomit and have diarrhea before every game. And so my parents came to me and said, you don't have to play basketball. It's your choice. You can choose to, or you can quit. It's perfectly fine. If it's causing you this much stress, you might consider quitting. But they really gave me that choice. I chose to keep going and learned a lot of great things from being in the basketball team as far as teamwork and perseverance go. Another example of giving choices and the importance of that and how that leads to efficacy is my daughter Emily. She grew up most of her, like fourth grade on. She was here at Sunset. And she just didn't do well in the youth group. And every time she went to the youth group, she got in the car and cried. She didn't like it. She's an introvert. And unfortunately, what was happening is people were forcing her to be an extrovert. She's number 3 in my kids, and my first 2 are more extrovertish. They're more loud leaders, where she's more of a quiet leader. But she just hated it. And so my husband and I got together and we said, let's tell her she doesn't have to go to Bible class. She doesn't have to go to the youth group. You do have to love Jesus, but you don't have to go to the youth group. So we went to her and we gave her a choice. And we said, we want you to go to worship. We want you here at worship, but we're not going to make you go to the youth group. You can make that choice. And she said, okay, I won't go to the youth group. I'll go to a coffee shop and I'll study my Bible at a coffee shop during that same time, quietly in that introvert kind of area, still learning the word. Many times I would go to her bedroom throughout the week and I would knock. You know how parents do, we knock and just open the door. So I'd knock and open the door, and she'd have her Bible out in high school, studying the word in high school. I knew she loved Jesus, but for some reason she couldn't do Bible class. And so we just told her she didn't have to. We gave her that control. Now she works in ministry. Praise the Lord. What if we'd have made her go and then she quit loving Jesus? So I know you have to make those own decisions as parents, but giving people control is a really important part of efficacy. All right. I'm going to skip through. This is not the PowerPoint I finalized. I'm very sorry. This optimism and pessimism. So people who are optimistic are going to have better self-efficacy. That makes sense. So if we believe in ourselves, I believe I can do that. I'm happy. My life is good. Things are going to go. You guys want me to do good. You're rooting for me out there. If we're an optimistic person, it's going to be easier for us to have high self-efficacy. They go together. Where pessimistic people tend to produce depression, despair, helplessness. They handicap themselves because they're talking down to themselves all the time instead of lifting themselves up so they can have that better efficacy. Kind of talked about personal agency already, just giving people control over their life. Making good goals for ourselves, I would say we've hit that also already, where we want to set good goals for ourselves to improve our efficacy. All right, we're going to do a glance at the lifespan. So these things that I'm going to tell you are crucial for healthy development. This is what science says. That is God. Confidence in one's ability to achieve goals is crucial, that we have confidence in our ability. 2, we have to believe we make a difference in the world. We have to have strong desires to engage in essential activities. So we have to have some activities that we find meaning in that we engage in. We have to master learning skills. We have to be socially connected. We have to have the ability to control and regulate our emotions. And we have to have a sense of optimism. Things we've covered. But this is definitely directly related to science. The CDC has a website that talks about these things to help with healthy development. The last thing is, for someone to have healthy development, they have to be attached and regularly engage in 1 to 2 of these institutions: school, church, family, or community organizations. So people have to have that social connection. It's super important to have healthy development. So we're going to glance at the lifespan. This is my daughter when she was 12, 18-month-old. Little, already you can tell she's an introvert. Look at that face. She's like, I'm serious, and you guys are a bunch of crazy people watching me. At this age in development, what children need is they need their parents to be efficacious. If the parents are strong, the parents believe in their abilities to do things, then they're going to be more responsive to the child's needs. If the parent's worrying all the time and thinking about themselves all the time in a negative way, that's going to project to our children. And so we need to be really highly efficacious. We need to be creating healthy habits for our children, even starting at this young age. Being mindful of our praise that we give them, even starting at this young age. Developmental scholars have long argued that preschoolers need parental stimulation and support to normally move through developmental stages. Without their support, the child will likely have difficulty with independent self-regulation, impulse control, and attention. Impulse control. A lot of teenagers, some of it's their brain's not developed completely, but a lot of them have a lot of problem with impulse control. If someone offers them a drink, they take it. They have that impulse control. So we want to start early if we can with our kids. Parental warmth increases efficacy and engenders positive behavioral regulation. All right, we're moving up 6 to 9-year-old. This is my niece, the Oompa Loompa, Morgan. At this age, they're beginning to develop peer relationships, same gender. They're hanging out with their friends. And so we want to make sure we're watching who those friends are, because if their friends are being very, very behaviorally disruptive, it might be something to consider. Maybe we don't have them possibly hang out with them as much. We want to find people they can learn from in a positive way. At this age, parents, again, are still very important. The way you speak to them and the way you set up their goals and their challenges, the way you let them have some control, the way you build that self-efficacy, the way you praise them, all of that's happening from teachers and parents at this stage. This is my 3 children when they were adolescents. Oh, adolescence is a hard age. So at this age, friends are absolutely essential because they're going to spend more time with their friends than they are with you. They're beginning to divide that. And so who they hang out with is very, very important. One study showed that more significant social and academic self-efficacy, so people who are socially efficacious and academically efficacious, in those people that are 14 to 18 years old, they could predict for the next 5 years that they'd have a life satisfaction, a high quality of life, this study showed, just because they were highly efficacious in social and academic endeavors. We want to be sure we're minimizing their struggles, not minimizing their struggles, and that we're being respectful to them, and we're listening to them, and we're being gracious. So whenever they really make mistakes, my kids have made some big mistakes that really shook our family. But we loved them anyway, and we hugged them, and we prayed over them, and we told them, you can do it, you can be successful, you can have a relationship with Christ, and really gave them those good, loving, kind of gracious reactions, kind of showing what Christ does for us. So don't minimize that. And we don't want to exasperate our children. There's a scripture about that. Something that you can do with adolescents, which is a nice thing that we did, I really will give credit mostly to my husband for most of the self-efficacy that he taught. He just naturally knows how to do it. I had to learn from him and then learn along the way with research and books and stuff. But he just naturally does it. But we want to give them a challenge, remember. We want to make it hard, and then we want them to do it and then reflect on it. So some things that we did. We didn't want to just give our kids money for a car. So we said, we're going to give our kids $1,500 for a car, and they have to raise the rest themselves. We're not just going to buy you a car. We're not even going to just give you $1,500 because we want to improve self-efficacy. And so each kid, Jackson was the first. Jackson was barely getting by. He was making D's and C's, just barely would go to school. He had a lot of anxiety, true. I mean, there's that. But anyway, so we went to him and we said, if you can get your grades to B's and some A's if you want to, but at least B's for a year, we'll give you $1,500 towards a car. And so they had the choice if they were going to do that. He took that and he said, I'll do it. He made all A's. And that's frustrating. Just apply yourself, brother. Anyway, so that's what we did for him. So we were able to watch him take a challenge and then work hard. He had to work at it to accomplish it. And then he was able to reflect on, I did that, and now I get the money. So we did the monetary reward. You don't have to do that. That's just an example. So with Andrew didn't want to work. He wanted to just come home from school and play videos constantly. He had no desire to get out in the world and work. And so we said, if you'll get a job, let's say United, and you will do that United job for 6 months, and then we made it a year, then we're going to pay you to get paid, because he wouldn't work. And so he took the challenge and he said, yeah, I will do that. It was crazy. He became the front-end lead manager. He was the youngest one they've ever had, just because we gave him a little incentive and made it challenging for him and then was going to reward him for it. And he has a lot of reflections still to this day. His hard-working ethic is incredible to watch. He is a servant. He was up till 2 o'clock last night with my nephew, and so was Joe. They are very servant-hearted men, for sure. But just that, being able to see him accomplish that challenge. Then Emily came along. Emily was in band. She was a clarinet player, and she was in band in junior high, and she was going to quit before high school. She just had a nice natural ability, and more than that, we could see a leader in her. And so we said, if you'll just do it your freshman year, That's all. Just one time that gets your PE credit, then you can get out of it. And so and we'll give you your $1,500. And she said, okay, I'll do it. So she did it, stayed in it all 4 years, was the captain of her section, loved it, talks about it all the time. She had some hardcore challenges in band. I mean, she grew dramatically in band. It's hard. I don't know if you have any band marching people, but it's harder than playing football. Studies have showed. So anyway, so we want to give people good challenges and let them succeed and then reflect on them and then see where it leads them. Emily's leading, she's leading, not necessarily in charge in front of people all the time. She does that too, but most of her stuff is behind the scenes, that kind of quiet leader, which is cool. All right. And then we have young adults. So the young adult people, they just need to keep having grit and resilience. They just need to keep learning, being encouraged by others. It's really something that's being talked about right now. 25-year-olds right now are taking their parents to the interview with them to get a job. What? Those are the helicopter parents, for sure. So those people don't have efficacy. And then adults. We just want to keep on doing all the things that we know to do, knowing that we have a relationship with Christ, for sure. My confidence is in Christ and Christ alone, because the Spirit lives within me. I can do everything He calls me to do. I can do everything He calls me to do. Believing in that, that's efficacy for sure. So that's that. For this one, that's done. I got the stop a second ago, so.
Do you want to say anything about that stuff on the table?
Well, over here, this stuff. I have more of these if you don't have one. There's the books that I'm recommending that are on the link. Those are mine, so don't take them. I'll hunt you down. I made some affirmation stickers. We're going to talk about the importance of speaking kindly to ourselves tomorrow. And then we're going to talk about overall health and wellness tomorrow. But I have those things on the table that you can look at and take. Those on that end you can take.
Okay, you pick a.
Oh, I get to see who it is. Robin Bagby? Robin Bagby, is that right? Yay!
If you didn't put your name on a ticket, you might want to do that, because we've got another one after this next session. We're going to take a quick break. There's a restroom for the women right here off of the elevator. Guys down the hall this way. Coffee, soda. No, sodas. Where did that come from?
We are not drinking sodas.
Sonics down the street there. Hot water for tea and coffee, so help yourself and come back. See you in a few minutes. Oh, I'm just gonna look at
tickle you. I'm gonna tickle you. Because you gotta go with your mom. You gonna go with your mom?
No, I mean, I knew there was somebody. There was a baby.
You gotta go. You're trapped. I don't think you're trapped. Are you sure you're trapped? Well, I think I can reach you to tickle you.